Welcome to Scorched Earth and a general reading for the sign of Capricorn, Sun, Moon or Ascendant for Gemini season, or June, or, you know, whatever you like, whatever your timing paradigm is. I hope you will. I'm using the Bulgarian deck, the 777, for you today. Things to tell you before we begin. If the reading resonates with you and you would like to go a little bit deeper, there will be an extended that you can access at the end. That will be via links in the description box below. The first link will take you to Selfie if you just want the individual extended for this. But if you want more of the kind of content that I produce very regularly, you might consider coming over to my private community, which is the Order of the Phoenix on the Circle platform. There you can get extended content for all of the signs. So I don't know, your moon, your ascendant, whatever you're not listening for here. The weekly energy readings that I do that run anywhere between 45 to 60 minutes long every single week. And come participate in the Deccan Walk, which has been nothing short of life-changing, even at this point, and we are only we've just entered the 7th Deccan of 36. It's really quite extraordinary. It's really, really beautiful, and I'm so here for it. Anyway, if you join at the higher tier, you can also come participate in the live classes that we run, and the reading meetups that we do. So if that sounds like it might be of interest to you, Capricorn, you know what to do with that. So we're going to start off here with the first question that we have been asking for months, and it's the only question that really means anything at this point. The most meaning, and that is, where are we right now? Not what are we afraid of coming down the pike, not what might happen, but like quite simply where we are right now. And from there, the second set of cards that we will look at has been rather inspired by the Deccan Walk, actually, and it's going to revolve around what aspect of our thinking, our worldview, and maybe even our belief systems and structures are ripe for upgrade, ripe for expansion, ripe for change. The decan of the three decans of Gemini are represented by the 8, 9 and 10 of swords, and it seems like everybody's ready for a shift in their thinking. So we will look at that, and then finally we'll look at the second most important question you can ask yourself in 2026, and that is, what is my next step? Not what's my 5-year plan, not what am I wanting to do this time next year, but like literally, where's the next place where I put my foot down? That's it. In the extended, we'll expand on whatever it is that comes out here. I won't know what that is until I've done this reading. So hopefully this is good for you. This is what I have. So let's see where Capricorn is right now, please. What's going on with Capricorn? 10 of Pentacles, straight out. And 7 of Cups. One last card for Capricorn, please. Thank you. There it is, Page of Pentacles. We have the Death card at the bottom of the deck. And I mean, touche. I mean, really, touche. I think the biggest problem for you at this point in time, Capricorn, is that you have no idea where this is going. You've just got a sense of what isn't really holding anything up anymore. You know, we start with the 10 of Pentacles, which generally speaking is considered to be a really good card. It's one of those that people ascribe the happily ever after to. But it really is only a base understanding of what this card is about, because all the cards that are numbered 10 in the minor arcana are always about endings. And that's where the sting in the tail is with this one, because we don't want it to end. Just like we don't want the 10 of Cups to end. And I mean, realistically, nothing ever really ends. It just changes form. There is a dynamic that we hope for that, in order to bring it around, always requires a little bit of friction. One of the biggest problems that I have with modern society and where we are right now is that with things like, I don't know, certain large language models, let's put it that way, people are losing the friction of wrestling with ideas. They don't know how to think anymore, and increasingly people are using it apparently to get relationship advice and stuff like that. And all of the natural friction that helps us grow is being a little bit well, it's being frankly fucking eradicated because everybody's sort of walking around expecting that everything should be easy, and I don't really know where that came from. I'm sure you, like me, find that completely baffling. And one could never accuse you of that. Not a Saturn sign. You don't expect things to be easy. You expect to work, and you expect to work hard for whatever it is that you want to achieve. But that Ten of Pentacles there, that underlying structure that you've always worked towards or worked within, it feels like it's cracking underneath your feet. And Seven of Cups, like, how are you supposed to feel about this? Now, the interesting position on this one, Capricorn, is that the feeling is actually the most important thing at this point. It is all about the feeling and very little to do with the structures, interestingly enough, whether they are building or whether they are collapsing or whether they're kind of wobbling around and we don't quite know which way they're going. Because this Page of Pentacles here, which, you know, if you subscribe to the cycle of the minor arcana, is you know, Ace to King, would represent the next step. I feel like the page is kind of a new appreciation all on its own. Because ultimately what is being questioned here is, what do you value? And I think the answer that you're coming up with is, I don't know. I don't know what to feel. I don't know what I think. I don't know what I do feel. I don't know what it is that has value anymore. Everything feels like it's really quite confusing, and it doesn't feel like it's necessarily going anywhere, which is the strange thing, because simultaneously you do know it's going somewhere. You just can't see where that is. And for a Capricorn, that's really discombobulating. But it is very much part of the transformation process. You know, when we talk about transformation, and it's probably a word that is used too often in spiritual spaces, but then, you know, set it against the energies of 2026 and maybe it's being underused. The Death card doesn't represent an ending. It represents a transformation state. It fucking second law of thermodynamics, right? Energy is never destroyed. It's never created. It simply changes form. And so what's going on here is there is a change of form of Capricorn. And I don't know, do you hate it? I think I hate it a little bit. as a Capricorn ascendant, I think I hate it a little bit. Because you're kind of swimming around in this sea of feelings that feels like it's so big we don't really know what possible benefit could come from it. You know? It just feels distracting, and it feels like it's pulling us from the path, but in that way that these things usually work, Capricorn, this is the path. And I wish I could give you, you know, more linear news than that, but I can't, right? It's like the medium is the message. It's nothing to do with what's actually being said. It's the process by which you are swimming around in this at the moment that is the important thing. Yeah. Why? Because it's all about the relationship that you have with yourself, Capricorn. Ultimately, for me, the Ace of Cups isn't about new love and somebody waltzing in and sweeping you off your feet. It's about the very sacred relationship that you have with yourself, because this is this is the medium by which you communicate with the universe. This is the medium through which you tell the universe what you want and how you're going to grow to get it. The old rules don't work anymore. To just put your head down and lock in on a goal and keep driving forwards is not actually what the lesson is. The lesson is, can you come to something a little softer, and can you come to something a little bit more fulfilling, that is a reflection of how you feel about yourself. And if that feels uncomfortable, it's supposed to. Let's have a little look at this Page of Pentacles. Got the Nine of Swords reversed. And the Page of Cups. Well, touché. Absolutely touché. This is good. I don't feel like you swimming around in a sea of shit, Capricorn. I'll be honest. I don't feel like you It feels like you're being jabbed by 1,000 swords and or death by 1,000 paper cuts, and you're just sort of lying on the ground and twitching, waiting to die. It's not got that feeling about it. It's confusing for sure, and there is an extent to which you're wondering how much of this is actually illusory, because you're kind of moving into ground that you have not allowed yourself to feel, because it disrupts, it takes you away from the path, whatever your path has been. And I don't worry about you losing perspective and descending, down some grand spiral into madness or anything like that. I mean, the Nine of Swords in reverse is enough to let us know that that isn't what is happening. But there's a lot that's being tested around how you thought the world worked and what the point of you being in it actually was. We have two additional pages, Page of Swords and the Page of Wands. You notice that the Page of Cups, you'll notice that the Page of Wands is absent. And I'm glad that he's absent, because I think it would add too much confusion, or maybe a little bit too much friction in terms of what you're wrestling with right now, because the Page of Wands is ready, he's eager, he's off, he wants to go, right? And there could be that sort of, maybe it's this way, maybe I need to go over here, maybe I don't need to do this, inefficiency of action that would have you, throwing yourself wildly from one thing into another, thinking that maybe this is the path or this one. And as I would expect from you, Capricorn, there's something much more circumspect going on. Like I said, there is the overall confusion of where the fuck is this all going, but there is that hugely intuitive side of you, which is massively underrated actually, that is going, I know all of this has a point, I just haven't quite worked out what it is yet. And there's nothing more frustrating, I think, as a Capricorn, than not being able to work out what the point of something is, because you've got the benefit of actually a really strong intuition that isn't really talked about that much with you, and it should be, combined with a certain kind of strategic understanding of the order that things must be done, and the time frames that these work to, and all that kind of thing. And you can't go off in a direction until you've got to the point of all of this. If anything, I feel like maybe all it feels like is kind of a little bit tedious. I don't feel any fear. A fleeting, maybe mild anxiety, but that mild anxiety seems to be circulating more around the idea that maybe you might miss what the point of it is. So you're paying attention. And I like the fact that you're doing that. And this Page of Cups is a fascinating representation, because it isn't the normal whimsical figure that we would see in the Page of Cups, and there's no fucking fish there at all. There's this kind of tentative approach from this, Wednesday Asms type figure here, who's just like, what the fuck is in that cup? Like, there's a separation. Normally the page is holding the cup, there's a fish head hanging out of it, and you're like, oh, joy, whimsy, all this kind of thing. And this one's like, no, this is serious, this is Saturnian, I recognise the importance of the moment, and I recognise the importance of whatever lesson I'm being dealt by the universe right now. But should this cup not contain a fish? Why is there a fucking octopus in it? Like, there's a caution here in the way that you're working. And I actually think this is exactly the way that you're supposed to be doing it, Capricorn. So you're not going to get any criticism from me on this front at all. But I just wanted to give you the validation of recognizing the tedium of it, and saying, yeah, that's it. That's exactly what it's supposed to be. And props to you for keeping your shit together in 2026 under difficult circumstances. So let's have a look and see what part of your thinking, your belief structures, your belief systems, your worldview is now ripe for upgrading. Because I feel like there's only so long that we can kind of hang around in this place of tedium and examination and whatnot before something pops up to the surface. Let's see what it is for Capricorn, please. Ooh, we have the Hermit, we have the Seven of Pentacles with the Queen of Swords. Interesting. Well, more card for Capricorn, please. Page of Swords on its side with the Sun card at the bottom of the deck. I think there's an interesting point here, Capricorn. And I think part of the interesting point is that a lot of what is being unleashed in you, which by definition requires the examination of emotions and the permission given for emotions to exist and all that sort of stuff, right, is that we're excavating. We are looking for the presence of the inner child. We're looking for the seat of your creativity. And more importantly, we're looking for how it is that you can motivate yourself moving forward from a place of self-expression, authenticity, and the joy of creation, rather than self-flagellation and must, ought, should, and all of the other ways. The very I will observe my kind of duty sort of place that you tend to move from. And the interesting thing is, I think you're trying to do what effectively we would always say would be the right way to do this, which is sort of look around inside yourself. But for some reason, that doesn't seem to me to be where the information is. And I don't know if this is because you've created a little bit of an echo chamber in your own head, and you're sort of ping-ponging backwards and forwards. And it's like, how many times can I look at the same piece of information without something new emerging from it? Oh, it feels like you're trying to force something here. You're trying to force an understanding on yourself in a way that circumvents the point of the struggle of the moment, which is the upgrade of consciousness that will allow you quite holistically to see what the problem is. This is very interesting. Trying to think of examples of what I mean. Like, when you look in the same place like 57 times for something, and you know realistically that it's not going to have just blipped into existence, between time 54 and time 57 of having looked in there. But yet you still go and have a look anyway, because there's always the possibility that you missed it the first 56 times. It's this kind of methodical scanning that you're doing. The answer's got to be in here somewhere. How can it not be in here somewhere? And you're right. But it's kind of, I don't know, there's a kind of lateral movement here that is required from you. Because if you've been engaged in self-examination, and I can see that you have been, if you are looking at all the things that are wrong, and you're looking at the ways in which you are no longer aligned with the environment that you are in, but you have no sense of what alignment might feel like in any other kind of situation, then you just seem to be looping on yourself over and over again. And the Page of Swords is at the point where he's like, well, I can't look for anything new because I've scanned everything already. But here's the rub, like, it's not about finding new information. It's about looking at the information with new eyes. And I don't think that you can do this with the methodical scanning that you're doing, going over the same pieces of information over and over again. You know that old quote that's attributed to Einstein? I know no idea if he actually said it or not. It might be apocryphal, but the idea that a problem cannot be solved by the level of consciousness that created it. I think this is the problem. And I get it with the frustration and the tedium of going over the same things over and over again. Like, it stands to reason that you're using the same level of consciousness that perhaps created the problem to try and look for it. It's like the difficulty of trying to use your own brain to work out how your brain is not thinking in straight lines. Like, it's just really, really fucking hard. And I think I would go as far as to say that you've done as many passes over the information that you've got as it's possible for you to do without anything new showing up. To the point that, like, maybe what you need to do is stop, Capricorn. Because I have a funny feeling that the extent to which you may be withdrawn and the extent to which you may be trying to, crack the nut of this problem is the extent to which you maybe need to put the problem down and start going outside. And I don't mean like just go outside and touch grass like the kids say. Like, I mean, actually start looking outward, not for the problem, but simply for the experience of feeling the sun on your skin. Or picking up a book and reading it just because you feel like reading it. Or going for a walk because it's a nice day. Do you see what I mean? Because the shift in consciousness does not come from the acquisition of new information. It comes from doing things differently and allowing your consciousness to expand to the point that then when you look at the same piece of information, you see a whole new layer to it that you didn't see before. Let me just have a look at this page of sources on this side. Fucking hell. Flew straight off the table. Well, there's the Seven of Cups again. Oh! Huh. Now that's really interesting. Both of them showed up reversed. We've got the Five of Swords, which is obviously something that you're kind of wrestling with here at this point. Like, what the examination of the brain and the mind type thinking things. The observation of one's own internal mental patterns, and maybe emotional ones too. Let's not leave those off the table. But the Three of Swords in reverse in this instance feels like it's a bobbing and weaving the truth of the situation. Right? It's not normally how I read the Three of Swords, but it's a Saturn card. And it's more than that. Saturn is exalted in this card, not because he loves to see people fucking crying and miserable and all that kind of thing, but because Saturn really wants everybody dealing with actual reality, which is going to be comprised of actual truth, which is going to pop the bubble of our own emotions and emotional state and cause the kind of shift that we're looking for. And now the page cannot do his job of creating stability where there is internal chaos, because the truth is not arrived at by thinking about it. The truth is arrived in allowing ourselves to sit with the emotional discomfort of not having the answer and therefore not being able to order ourselves in the direction of what the result is. It's about allowing yourself to just experience life while this shit is working itself out in the background. It's almost like you're resisting your own transformation by trying to force it along, which is fascinating. So what are we supposed to do with this? What is the next step for Capricorn, please? No, I'm not going to take you. You didn't jump. Six of Wands. I don't think we're ready for that yet. Right. Five of Cups in reverse. Ten of Swords. Hoo-hoo. Ooh. So now we have the Three of Swords, we have the Death card, have the Ten of Swords on the side, we have the Five of Cups in reverse. This is absolutely 100% in agreement with what I was saying to you before here. It's like you've got to recognize the limits of your own cognition, Capricorn. This is my favorite interpretation for the Ten of Swords. And the limits of your own cognition are you cannot solve the problem of your consciousness with the same level of consciousness that created that in the first place, right? We need to do something different. And in your case, I think you need to recognize that like I said, that the medium is the message, the emotions are the message, the confusion is the message. And the question is, the next step should be, can you find a way for you? It's almost like so fucking obvious. Like it's yeah. Anyway, can you find a way to stabilize the emotions that you are having around the difficulty of trying to crack this particular nut by finding things that bring you joy, right? I'm not talking about spiritual bypassing. I'm talking about doing things that just make you feel good. Because why? Because you're a Capricorn and you're magnificent, and actually you get to enjoy being alive as well. Like that's actually allowed. And I feel like Capricorns, for most Capricorns, that's a, excuse me, what do you mean? Right? And there's all the traditional ways in which you have found enjoyment, and you've found, validation, and you found a degree of contentment in the past. And we've also recognized that those aren't really doing it for you. So this Five of Cups is recognizing that the lesson of the moment is in the emotional discomfort, and despite not being able to put one's hands on the answer, just, bang the nail on the head and all that kind of thing, can we tolerate that ambiguity and still find ways to make ourselves feel like life is worth living? Do you see what I mean? Now, like I said, I don't feel like you're all, that you've all fallen into a well of despond or anything like that, spiraling into all sorts of things. But it's like, this is so much easier than you think it is, because you're used to things being hard. You're used to having to work hard. King of Pentacles, Taurus. And we have the Tower on its side with the Devil at the bottom of the deck. Wow. Now, if you happen to be a Capricorn ascendant, I'm going to throw this in sideways. For you, the 5th house is ruled by Taurus. I know this because that's what rules my 5th house. And of course, I'm talking in whole sign. I'm not talking about Placidus, right? To have the Taurus card show up when we are talking about creative self-expression and this kind of authenticity that is lighter than anything that you've experienced before, to have the 5th house be showing up seems to be really quite pertinent. We've also got the Tower here. I love this Tower card. This is my favourite card in the entire deck. And it took me a second to work out why it was the Tower. And I realised it's the presence of the cat that makes this card make sense. It's like when the Tower hits, it really does feel like the world fucking shifts 90 degrees under your feet. We've got it going on there. But what is interesting about this card when it shows up, this specific Tower card, is where are we perceiving a drama that actually isn't really there? Where do we feel like the world has spun 90 degrees from where we think it is, and actually all we have to do is just sort of sit up a little bit? This is what I mean, Capricorn. I feel like you're making this really difficult for yourself because you feel like it should be a difficult process. It feels like, all things that are Saturnian should come to bear on this one, and so it should be a grind. It should be a long-term, rather austere test of one's self-discipline and one's commitment to finding the answer, rather than the alternative which is you let this work do its own thing and you go do something that makes you feel good in the meantime. You hold the state of discomfort whilst not losing what it is to be, an ambulatory haunted meat sack in 2026 who can go do things. We've got the devil at the bottom of the deck. And this is really interesting because it speaks not only to you on the level of identity, and that's incredibly important, right? But it also speaks to the ways in which the illusion really takes hold. The devil is not a blunt instrument, no more than you are, Capricorn. The devil is actually an incredibly smart energy of putting us in a state of feeling stuck and trapped and feeling like we don't have any, we cannot make any headway with anything no matter what we do, because it obfuscates where the path actually is. There's a repetition of a cycle that you've been in for a long time, and the whole point is that we're breaking the cycle. Capricorn, can't use the same level of consciousness to break this down. It can't happen. But the devil will tell you that's exactly how you have to do it. And all the while, all you're really doing is enforcing the very cycle that you are trying to repeat, that you're trying to break. What's underneath there? Justice. I love the Justice card. I don't know how you feel about it, Capricorn, but I think most of you might approve of it because it is that sense of an underlying order in the universe, right? Natural law says everything will be brought into balance at some point. But it also has that idea of karma. Now, a lot of people will tell you a lot of bullshit about what karma is, but it is simply the consequences of your actions. And there's no moral quality to the presence of karma. Not really. If any of you are interested, I think I still have on my channel somewhere in the recommended viewing a video that breaks down beautifully the concept of karma. It's a neutral force. So we have action and consequence as a neutral force with no moral imperative associated with it whatsoever. That the devil is currently trying to stop you from seeing. The consequences of you doing what you are doing is that the answer becomes more and more elusive. Do you see what I'm saying? So you have to do something else. It's the most obvious, most logical step here. It's a little bit when you get fucking like colour blindness when you've been staring at like a box full of fucking jigsaw pieces that all basically seem to be identical, and you're like, I'm looking for the one that has this tiny little whip of white on like one little nobble of it. Or when you've looked in the same place 57 times for something. Sometimes you just have to put even the whole concept of finding this thing down and go do something else. Literally go do something else for a while. And then you find it just like that, the answer fucking appears. This Ten of Swords is on its side here because it's asking you to recognize the limits of your cognition. It's asking you to recognize the limits of the consciousness that is trying to crack this problem. But he's on his side because you have not yet taken that step of choosing to do something different. And what do I mean by this? I mean, fucking anything you like, Capricorn. Have you always thought that you might be quite good at throwing pots? Go join a pottery class. Would you like to work on creative writing? Go join a class for that. Have you always found astrology quite interesting? Sign up for a course in that. Are you interested in tarot? Sign up for a course in that. Pick up a book. Go see beautiful things outside. Start occupying a space, Capricorn, where you don't always have to have the answers. And that's okay. Be in a space where that hustle mentality is not required. In fact, it kind of gets in the way of reading a good book. Right? Let's put it fucking down for a minute and just pick the book up instead. Can you get yourself into a place where your productivity... I'm taking a deep breath on that one because I know it's a big one, right? Your productivity isn't actually a useful consideration in what happens next. Was it in Indiana Jones? I think it might be in Indiana Jones. It's a clip where it's in the middle of, I don't know, in the middle of the desert somewhere, right? And he's surrounded by fucking thousands of Arabs, and there's this guy with a scimitar, and he's like waving it around. And Indiana Jones just shoots him. Is that obvious? What you have here, Capricorn, is a representation of the Gordian knot. And if you're not familiar with the story of the Gordian knot, it was the knot that could not be undone by anyone, and everybody tried and they failed. And then somebody came along, and I totally forget who it was off the top of my head. He just looked at the knot, he picked up his sword, and he just cut straight through it. The level of consciousness that all the people that tried to undo the knot were bringing was the same level of consciousness that had created the knot in the first place. What it took was a whole different way of doing something, and then it was separated. This is the transformation you're looking for, Capricorn. Hand on fucking heart, this is what it is. Give it a week. Try it for a week. This is fascinating. Right. I'm actually really excited about this. So I'm going to leave it here, and I'm going to go to the extended. We're going to dig into this a little bit. We're going to cut into that Gordian knot just a little bit. So if you would like to join me over there, you're very welcome to do so. Like I said at the beginning, the links are in the description box below. You can come to Selfie, you can come to Circle. I'd be delighted to see you in either place. Try it for a week. Invest yourself totally in it for a week. Things will start to shift and change in front of you. I promise. Right. Know that I love you all very, very much. And I'll see you soon.